The Psychology of Money, a book written by Morgan Housel that explores personal finance through the lens of human behavior. Behavior and luck are more important to achieving wealth than financial knowledge and intelligence. Financial success is not a hard science, it is a soft skill. Whether you do well with money depends much more on how you behave than how much you know or how smart you are. This book, The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel, it's perhaps one of the best books out there on managing emotions, and as the title says, on the psychology of money. It is a spectacular book that helps us understand one of the most important topics when it comes to financial success, and that is to understand the relationship we humans have with money and our behavior and how it affects our financial decisions. In this video, we're going to talk about this book, The Psychology of Money, and 7 lessons that we can immediately apply in our financial decisions. First, let's start by discussing what the book is about. In this book, Morgan Housel talks about the importance of controlling our emotions to have financial success. He talks about key topics such as the magic of compound interest when it comes to investing, and the role that luck plays in our lives, a topic that we cannot overlook. He talks about human biases, the overconfidence that can lead us to make very bad decisions. It also tells us about the ambition of the human being, how nothing is ever enough, and how we're always trying to reach the bar. It tells us about the risk that human beings run when investing, when undertaking new projects. And as Bill Gates says, success in a project is a very bad teacher because it makes people think that they cannot lose. The same thing happens when it comes to investments. It is very important to be very clear about how much risk I am capable to tolerate. Morgan Housel talks about the investor's risk profile and how that risk profile can help us make better investment decisions. He also tells us that it is one thing to be rich and quite another to stay rich. How do we human beings protect and maintain our wealth over time? Because one can be wrong 50% of the time making investment decisions and still make a great fortune. Wealth, the book tells us, is not necessarily what you see. Many people spend fortunes trying to appear and show people things that many times we're not. We spend a lot of money having the best car, the best house, the best clothes to impress others. And surely those people care little about what happens in our lives. It also tells us about the importance of saving, and above all, about the importance of stopping looking for easy money and quick money, and not looking for extraordinary returns. When we look for the easy and fast money, that's when we make big mistakes when it comes to investing. This book at the end shows us the role that psychology and behavior play in making money and creating wealth. And it also gives us several strategies to avoid those mistakes, to control our emotions, and in the end, what it's all about, having financial peace and achieving financial success. That's why I want to talk about these 7 lessons that are very important and that we can today apply in our financial decisions. The first lesson is the importance of saving. As Morgan Housel says, wealth creation is not much about how much you earn or how much your investments return, but how much you have left at the end of the month. Or as the great investor Charlie Munger would say, saving itself is a discipline. It's a complete education. If we start developing the ability to save, of course, a lot of things in our financial life are going to improve. Lesson number 2. To improve your finances and your family's finances, you have to increase your humility. This is something very interesting that Morgan tells us in his book. And that is that instead of increasing your income, really the creation of wealth in the early years and in the beginning is about increasing our levels of humility. As I said a few seconds ago, we spend our lives trying to impress other people and trying to show many times what we are not. And what we do is drain our personal finance. So at an early stage, wealth creation, Morgan says, is much more about increasing those levels of humility. Lesson number 3. The most important plan is to plan for things to not go the way that we plan. I know, it sounds like a tongue twister, but I'm going to say it one more time. The most important plan in our lives is to plan for things to not go the way that we plan. What does that mean? This is where he talks about the way that luck plays in our lives. But does it help to estimate the role that luck plays in our financial success? Well, of course, it can lead us to make big mistakes, but Morgan gives us a very concrete example with the life of Bill Gates. One would say that Bill Gates became one of the richest men on earth because of his intelligence and his work. But Morgan Housel also wonders about the role of luck in his life. And the fact that Bill Gates studied at the time when 300 million human beings went to school at the same time that he did. Of those 300 million students, 18 million lived in the United States. Of those 18 million, 270,000 lived in Washington State, the state where Bill Gates was born. Out of those 270,000, 100,000 lived in the city of Seattle. Of those 100,000, 300 human beings went to the same school where Bill Gates studied. In other words, 1 out of a million people went to the school that had that fortune box. And what is that fortune box? Well, it is a computer. It was one of the only schools in the United States that had a computer. Notice that one cannot underestimate the role that luck plays in our lives. And that is why many times we plan for things to not go the way that we plan. And here I'll go back to the beginning. The most important plan is to plan for things to not go the way that we expect them. Lesson number 4. Being a good investor is not necessarily about making good investment decisions. It's about being consistent with not making bad investment decisions. It makes a big difference. It's not about winning every time. It's about trying to limit the loss, limit the downside. That's why Warren Buffett, one of the greatest investors of all time, said, rule number 1 of money making, don't lose money. And rule number 2 of investment, don't forget rule number 1. Lesson number 5. Be wary of financial advisors who are planning a different game than you are. Each one of us plays a different game. So be very careful with the advice that you receive from third parties, because the most important thing here is to understand what kind of game you are playing. And when it comes to money, what are our goals? What are our objectives? What is the risk tolerance or our risks profile? That's why not necessarily what third parties recommend to us is what suits us the best. We have to align very well our purposes and our objectives with our investment and the way that we manage our money. Lesson number 6. Harness the magic of compound interest. There is an entire chapter dedicated to the topic of compound interest, where Morgan tells us that Warren Buffett, again, one of the greatest investors in history, built the vast majority of his fortune at the age or after the age of 65. Think about that for a moment. What Warren Buffett's life would have been if he had retired on an island or a beach in Miami at the age of 65. Surely, he would have been just fine, another rich guy in Florida with $2, $3, or maybe $4 million. But he would have not been the greatest investors on the planet. Or as Albert Einstein puts it, the magic of compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world. Finally, lesson number 7. The more patient I am today, the more likely I am to achieve my financial goals. It has a lot to do with lesson number 6 and the magic of compound interest, because this is Morgan Housel's invitation to us, as he says in his last chapter of his book, that the best way to become a great investor is to extend our time horizon. And what does he mean by that? The best way to win this money game is to gain time, to be patient, to play for the long term. This is one of the most important lessons that I take away from this book, because in conclusion, to be successful with the money game, we must understand that it's a game of emotions, that the game of investments and the game of money, it's a game of psychology. I hope you enjoyed this summary. I hope you enjoyed this video. This is one of my favorite books, and there's a lot to it. So I wanted to make sure that you didn't miss any of these lessons. So keep learning. Remember, knowledge is not power, but applied knowledge is really powerful. So keep learning. And if you want to learn more about videos and books like this and improve your financial literacy, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that like button for the YouTube algorithm. So stay tuned. I'll see you next time. Bye.